Hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today we will be talking about the Ruy Lopez or the Spanish game, and I will be showing you how to play it as white. By the way, if you're looking for your own opening repertoire or get to know how to improve your opening repertoire on the base of this video, you can just join the community. The Discord is of course in the description, and obviously how to get better chess.com. E4, E5, knight F3, knight C6, bishop B5. We're in, and the plan that I would like to teach you right now as white is basically a plan that will be based on every single black's answer, because here black has a lot of answers. Black has a6 and black has knight f6, and obviously some other side moves like for example f5, which is a very known gambit, and g6, which is the choice that I have made or that I have or line that I've taught to one of my previous students. Basically, it's a hard move to play as white if you don't know how to handle it. So we will be talking mainly about those four moves. First of all, after a6, the line that I would like to show you, and not teach you, but you can just keep that in mind, is the move from Lasker against Capablanca, which is bishop takes c6, pawn takes back, and now d3. And basically what Lasker said is, I will basically use my knights, and you will have a bad pawn structure, so if one day we play an endgame, the pawn structure will be a problem. Whatever. Okay, maybe or maybe not. But here the good move is not to capture play 95, by the way, because of queen d4. I forgot to mention that, but this would just be a huge problem. I played a lot of games like that when I was a beginner, and the problem is that after the trade of queens and bishop g4, there is a problem because we have a hard time actually bringing every single piece into the game, and if we try to play something like rook e1, castles and king f1, we always get the pawn structure destroyed. So we cannot allow this thing to happen, which means that after a6, bishop a4 is the best answer. And now there are already a lot of answers for black. There is knight f6, which basically almost transposes into the other move, knight f6, which is the Berlin defense. Or we can play the answer from as black, we can play the answer from Fabiano Caruana, which is bishop to c5. Now, as white, and one of the best plans, and the plans that I'm basically recommending you, is to play with c3. And the plan of c3 is very simple. We are aiming to play the pawn move d4. For example, if knight f6, d4 would be an idea. Now, the small reason why we can play, or actually we can play the move, but there is just a thing you have to keep in mind, which is captures. There's bishop b4, and basically the games can just continue like this: knight c3, knight e4. You're losing the pawn, but it doesn't matter because somehow you have enough compensations. Let me just show you an example. Even though black has won the pawn on e4, the king is still in the center, so we can just castle as white. And after, for example, captures, and knight takes, there is queen e1 fork, which is a nice trap. So usually black plays something like for example, d5 to protect the knight, or castles, and then the pawn structure can become a problem. And to be honest, I just remember one game where d5 was played, but keep in mind that this is just a thing. There's also knight c3 that exists, and if you decide to capture, then after bishop takes, you definitely don't have anything as white. This is why you should be playing queen e1 check, and now after, for example, king f8 or whatever. For example, queen e7, you can just capture on c3, recapturing the knight. Now if they capture on e1, you have to recapture and win a tempo against the bishop. And after bishop e7, because the bishop is technically getting attacked, bishop e7, you can just re-attack the bishop with bishop to a3, which is right now threatening to, let's just say you play a6. I want to capture here. So, and you cannot castle, by the way, because now you're no longer defending the bishop. I have two attackers against the bishop. And therefore, if black plays something like d6, try to close this diagonal, then there is a problem on this one. We can just play d5. And the lines are very complicated. b5 captures, knight d4, or rook this, rook b4, rook e4. So the lines are very, very, very tricky. Let me just turn on the engine very quickly just to make sure that I'm not saying anything wrong. I would guess equal slightly better black. Yeah, equal. It's not even better black. It's just really equal here. Because obviously I have to show you how to play those positions more or less normally. And again, it's just an introduction to all of those openings. If you want something more deep, and you can just join the Online Chess Academy. But basically, I'm just showing you how to play those openings. Now, after d4, black usually plays something like bishop b6 or bishop a7, after which you can just try to organize something like e5. The thing is, if you play d5 now, you have a hard time capturing the pawn on e5 since knight e4 is still an option. So you can just leave the tension and play castles. Now, if they play something like knight e4, then after rook to e1, and let's say the knight moves back, then obviously here there is a problem after knight e5, or even captures rook e5. There is just a problem with the king, because bishop e6 is not something you want to play because of knight g5, and there is just a problem on e6 which is unsolvable. And therefore, here one of the best answers is to play d5. But if you play d5, then obviously after knight e5, it should just be completely equal, but slightly better white, I would argue, due to the activity that we do dispose or have in this position as white. Although if you capture, it feels like there's already queen f6 attacking the knight and threatening queen f2, and if you capture on a7, there's the in-between move queen takes f2. So I would be recommending you rather to just play knight e2, not capture the pawn yet. And okay, usually the positions look like this, and if captures, then obviously you're fine. And the reason why white should be fine, even though black has a bishop pair, is because of the fact that we have this knight on e5. Black is going to play something like f6 probably. If black's goal is, of course, to chase the knight away. At the same time, the bishop is just terrible. So the game is not as simple as it seems for black. Again, the way you will be getting better at those lines will basically by practicing those lines simply a little bit more. So yeah, just a small detail. Okay. So this was basically what I want to say and talk about bishop c5. It's just a small introduction to those lines. There's also b5 here that exists, and the line that I've seen very often is knight a5. And the move that I've played a lot, and I still don't know if the ancient agrees with me or not. I mean, I was 1700 feet when I played that. I think you can play bishop f7. Yes, you can. So I play this move so often in classical, but I never actually analyze those games. It's a mistake that I've done in the past. Always analyze your games, but I never did that. Yeah, and after king f7, the goal is simple. You want to go 95, and there are already two options for black: win or lose. If you go for something like king f6, for example, then after d4, I'm pretty sure I can play queen f3 first. Let me just calculate this. Do I have a checkmate? Check this. Doesn't feel like I have a mate. I can maybe pick up the rook. Yeah, let me just think for a second. Maybe I should just be playing d4. Let me just check with the engine very briefly. Yeah, just d4. And I can play queen f3. Very small example. Let's just say I go bishop e7, then after check, at the very, very least, I just pick up the queen, and if you go king e7, again, okay, I just don't know if there is a mate or if it's just completely winning. Feels like it's just completely winning after bishop f4. You can't do anything. The king is just completely lost. Yeah, it's just terrible actually how lost that is. I think my threat is knight c4, by the way, because this is just mate, because the knight is controlling the b6 square. Okay, so we do have indeed a lot of lines, a lot of problems here to offer to black. So just another small detail, and there is obviously just knight f6 directly, but after knight to f6, the move that I've played a couple of times here was queen to e2, with the intention that after, for example, bishop c5, for example, uh, I just have a very active queen, and I might be playing c3, and later on, basically d4, but basically I will have the place for my rook. So usually the games look like this: d3, d6, castles, bishop g4, h3, for example, and rook d1. Now, there is a plan in the Spanish, which is basically called the Spanish plan, which is to go knight d2, knight f1, and then knight back to g3 to jump on f5. This is very, very, very common. So technically, you can play knight e2, but bishop e3 will just make sure that knight e2 will no longer block the bishop. And usually games look like this: captures, rook e8, this, yeah, the rook goes away, then knight f1, knight g3. In this position, I'm not sure that this is really needed, but either way, we will have to use the f5 square, since this is a file that we're already controlling with the pawn, and in that case with the rook. Another small example would be, let's just say we don't play with queen e2. I just wanted to talk about this knight maneuver, because this is really one of the trademark of the Spanish game. Let's just say, for example, bishop c5, castles. Okay, I don't know. Let's just say castles. Yeah. Knight c3. Okay, let's just bring in some example moves. Okay, bishop d7, rook e1. Oh wait, I played knight c3. I'm so dumb. H3, d6, rook e1, rook e8, knight d2, knight f1, something like this, and knight g3. And this is something that happens extremely often. And as long as you're building up already some patterns with this maneuver, you will be good to go. You know, this would really be your best opening. Now, you already understand a little bit more about the plans that usually happen as white in the Spanish game or in the Ruy Lopez. Now we will be talking about f5, because f5 is obviously a dirty, dirty line. But the way you will catch an advantage here is very simple. You will basically play knight c3, allowing the trace to happen. But once something like this happens, you will basically allow black to take the center, which feels awful. But you have so much counterplay due to the fact that black played f5, the king is just completely dead. You can just play knight e5. And if they capture the knight, then you can just play queen h5 check at any moment. But I should be I mean, I would be recommending you to start with knight takes c6 because if they recapture, then obviously there is just a problem here. You know, for example, queen h5, g6, queen e5, queen e7. We can already trade and I pick up the rook, and I'm just winning here. I mean, winning is winning, right? So usually they play something like queen d5, which attacks the bishop and the knight, but we have the dirty c4. The queen has to move, then you can just move the knight away, knight a7, And if they go c6, then it doesn't matter. You can just pick up the bishop, attack the queen. They capture, then you go bishop a4, bishop c2, and you're up 2 pawns as white. Yeah, so that's basically a decent memory test. You can still ask me questions in case there is a line that isn't clear. And if black goes, for example, d6, which happens often, then you can do something very interesting. Notice that you have 2 pawns in the center. You're controlling d5, and black is controlling d4. But you can just play d4, and after captures, you're still controlling d5, and white doesn't control d4 anymore, and therefore you want a space advantage. It should be completely equal. Usually the games look like captures, castles, knight f6, and then queen f3, bishop g5, and just swing over, push, and you're really playing mainly on the king side. And very often you end up playing knight f5, and after captures you can even recapture with the pawn to open up the queen. Ooh. So you have a lot of plans that basically look this way. And if g6, now the funny line, you can just play d4 instantly. And if bishop g7, then obviously you're just good to go. So you end up facing this line quite often. And now the correct way of playing it with white would be to not even recapture the pawn, but to go bishop g5 first. Because in case they go f6, then once you retreat, whatever, then they will actually never have the chance to play knight e7 because of the pawn. So they will have to play bishop e7 or bishop g7. But obviously now the bishop is just unhappy. Okay, so you got basically your first ideas with the Spanish as white and as black. Hopefully you understood everything. If there's still anything unclear, you can still, send a send messages in the comment section. I will be there to answer you. See you in the future. Take care.